Good evening, everyone, to you who are joining us in person as well as connected to us via Facebook, YouTube, or however you're joining us. I want to take this time to welcome you tonight. And as we take this time to welcome you, we want you to know that we are appreciative of you tuning in and you being a part of this information session. So once again, thank you for joining us for this important session on sales taxes in North Carolina. Your presence, your support here speaks volume about your commitment to stand informed and engage in the decisions that shape our communities. Sales taxes may seem like just a number on a receipt, but they directly affect the quality of our schools, healthcare, public safety, and infrastructure. And knowing how these taxes are structured and where the revenues goes empower us to make wise choices. As informed voters, we don't just respond to policy changes, we help steer them in ways that reflect our values and priorities. So tonight's session is designed to equip you with the knowledge you need to make confident decisions at the polls. Let's remember that democracy thrives when citizens are informed and engaged. Your vote isn't just a right, it's a powerful voice for shaping the future of our community. So again, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining in. Let's dive in, ask questions, and leave tonight better prepared to vote with insight and intention. Your participation makes a difference. And so we are grateful to share with us information on the sale and use taxes. Dr. John Carlos Miller, who is the Assistant Superintendent of Operations Support Service, as well as Dr. Shirley Morrison, Chief Human Resource Officer. So Dr. Miller is going to come at this time and share with us information that will help us so that we will be informed when we go to the polls. There will be an opportunity for even those online to ask questions. You can type in your questions and we will see that you get the proper response. So at this time, we're going to ask Dr. John Carlos Miller to come and he's going to share. Let's give way to him.
Thank you so much, Pastor Hughes, and to those in attendance tonight, and certainly to those of you who are joining us via Facebook Live. We appreciate your attendance tonight, and certainly grateful for my colleague and friend, Dr. Shirley Morrison, our Chief HR Officer for Guilford County Schools. And we appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight about particularly our teachers and our frontline workers. Every day, teachers and frontline workers at our local public schools, they prepare students to succeed in life. However, due to the pandemic, there are certain challenges that have become exacerbated, made worse by students being out of school. For example, school safety, student and staff mental health. These are just some of the things that have become worsened by the pandemic. But our teachers and our frontline workers, they come to work and they do their job every day because they care.
Our frontline workers serve over 10 million meals to our students on a daily basis or each year. Our bus drivers drive more than 45,000 miles a day, and our maintenance folks take care of more than 350 buildings, keeping our schools running and ready for our students, something that is critical throughout the district.
Now, I'm sure we all have a story of a teacher or a frontline worker who helped us when we were students. For me, it's really, really close to home for me because that person for me was my dad, a 28-year veteran biology teacher from Kinston, North Carolina, who instilled in me the importance of education and doing the right thing.
John Carlos, teachers are critical, but I think about a person in my life a gentleman by the name of Perry Warner. Perry was a custodian at the school, first school that I was a principal of. And I can think it was like yesterday, we had snow, which is unusual for these times, recent years at least. But it was snowing outside, and they called for school to close. We got the buses in, got students on their way to home. I made sure that all the teachers got out of the building. And Perry came to me and said, "Ms. Morrison, you know, you got everybody else out of here safely. What about you?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, Perry?" He said, "Well, that little red truck of yours, I don't know, it's not gonna make it in the snow."
Right.
He said, "Give me your keys." Perry went around to the back of the building, and there were some railroad ties in the back that we were gonna make a flower garden from. And he put some of those railroad ties on my truck and said, "Hey, now you're good to go. You can go anywhere. You'll be safe, don't worry about it."
That's right, that's right. So needless to say, our teachers and our frontline workers, while their work does not go unnoticed, the state has failed to provide educators with fair compensation for their work. Today, North Carolina is one of the top states for business in the United States, but ranks 38th with regard to teacher compensation behind South Carolina, Virginia, and Georgia. Unfortunately, many of our teachers and frontline workers have to work 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet.
In Guilford County, we have made the education of our students a priority. Over the past several years, we have used local funding to increase teachers' compensation. Unfortunately, the resources are limited, and the county has not been able to keep up with the funding for our local teacher supplement as other counties have. For example, in Forsyth County, over the last 3 years in a row, there's been a surplus use of local funding for teachers. Forsyth County has passed a local sales tax to do that, which has made it difficult for us to compete. I mean, we have a difficult time trying to recruit teachers in because just right 20 miles down the road, they're paying them more money with that supplement. On average, the overall teacher supplement in Guilford County is 35% lower than those in similar counties right next door to us.
So now let's talk about our frontline workers, which is on the graph that you see now. We've made progress in increasing the compensation for our frontline workers, but despite our efforts, we're still behind the market for many of our positions. This slide illustrates the variances between current employee pay rates and the market. As you may recall, Guilford County Schools did a salary study in 2021-2022 to determine the variance between our current salary rates and the market values. This slide has been updated, however, to reflect the inflation rate change in the market salaries from the 2021-2022 study. The net result, which is that orange column that you see, results or reflects a wider margin between the percentages increases to GCS salaries versus the market value, thus resulting in lags across positions within our school district for our frontline workers, thus the need for many of them to work a second and even a third job, and also leads to sometimes they leave to go for better pay.
So that brings us to where we are now. The next slide shares with you that the Guilford County Board of Commissioners placed a fraction of a penny sales tax referendum on the November ballot to increase pay for local school teachers and frontline workers. Our local teacher leaders have publicly supported this referendum because they believe teachers and frontline workers are essential to improving the quality of education in our schools. They have passed a resolution unanimously committing to us that the additional tax revenue to increase pay for our local school teachers and frontline workers will be utilized that way.
So now some of you may ask, what does this mean for me? I'm glad you asked because that's a great question. The proposed sales tax increase is a fraction of a penny, or 0.25%. The fraction of a penny tax amount would equal an additional 5 pennies on a $20 purchase. With the tax increase, for example, a $20 pizza, a large pizza that you might buy now, which after you pay tax,
That's a small pizza, John Carlos.
I could probably eat 2 of them.
Yeah, there you go.
But for that pizza that's $20 and after tax is included at 6.75, you would pay $21.35 right now. Should this sales tax referendum increase or pass, you would pay $21.40 for the same pizza,
Just 5 cents more?
just 5 cents more. Many surrounding counties, including Forsyth, Davidson, Randolph, and Rockingham counties, have already passed a similar tax referendum. The proposed fraction of a penny sales tax increase excludes gas, groceries, and prescription drugs. However, it does apply to visitors. So not just Guilford County residents would have to pay this additional tax. All of the visitors that come into Guilford County. Now, I don't know if you know this, but there's something big going on this weekend in Greensboro.
What is that, John Carlos?
It's called G-Ho. It's the greatest homecoming on earth.
That's my Aggies.
That's my Aggies too. Aggies, right?
Absolutely.
But those people that come in from all over the world for the greatest homecoming on earth, those folks who come to Tanger Center to see shows and watch concerts, those folks who come to the Greensboro Coliseum from out of town to take in shows and other events, those folks who come in for the furniture market, when those folks come in, they bring with them $1.6 billion in revenue.
Folks, the county officials estimate that the sales tax referendum could generate and should generate an additional $25 million that they pledge to use to increase the pay of our teachers and frontline workers. So this November, it's up to you. We want to make sure that when you go to the ballot booth, you have the resources you need to make an informed decision. Now, one thing that's very important, the sales tax referendum is the last thing on the ballot. And it does not say anything about money being used for frontline workers or teachers. It says vote for or against. So please pay close attention.
So now, as you prepare to vote, here are some important dates that we want to remind you of. Of course, back in September, our mail-in ballots, they have already gone out. But early voting begins Thursday, the 17th, and it lasts all the way through November 2nd. Election Day, of course, is November the 5th, which is a teacher work day for Guilford County schools.
So you can scan the QR code if you want to go to one of the early voting sites. As John Carlos said, that will open on Thursday. You can even scan it on your TV set. Scan that code, check out one of the early voting spots, and please get out and let's vote.
So just like the bond, the record bond that was passed here in Guilford County a few years ago, 2 of them, to remind you, over $2 billion in bonds for our school district. We still need your help. Please make your voices heard by showing up to vote. Also, spread the word to those in your community, those in your congregations, those in your synagogues, wherever they may be, in the grocery store. Share this information with them and encourage them to get out to vote, because our teachers and our frontline workers in Guilford County, they need your help.
Guys, it just makes sense when you think about it. So we are now open for any questions that you may have. Yes, ma'am.
There are 2 questions.
Sure.
Sure.
Tell me about the second one. The second question on the referendum, I'm familiar with the sales tax for teachers, but the second question was about something about if you were born
Not familiar with that.
Yeah,
No.
unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, not familiar with that.
But we'll try and find out some information and get that back to you. Absolutely.
One question that I have is, are you certain that the money will go towards it?
Yes, that's a great question. So the question from the floor was, are you sure that this money would go towards Guilford County schools? And the response to that is, as we said earlier in our presentation, the Board of County Commissioners has done a bipartisan, not referendum, but a bipartisan support, has cast bipartisan support. So regardless of whether they were Democrat or Republican, unanimous support for the dollars that would be generated from this sales tax referendum to go towards teachers and frontline workers in Guilford County.
They've made a commitment.
Yeah, I have a question.
There's, I'm sorry.
Could you share as to what extent do sales tax revenues contribute to essential services that benefit frontline workers like public transportation and child care assistance?
So with this sales tax increase, when we talk about frontline workers, we're talking about school bus drivers, we're talking about school nutrition workers, we're talking about our plumbers, our custodians, our heating, ventilation, air conditioning technicians, all of the folks who make our schools operate. The reality is that without our frontline workers in the schools, there is no school.
Exactly.
So our schools need our frontline workers, and we need the teachers in the building not to have to worry about going to work a second job or a third job because they don't make enough money to be in the classroom to support our legacies, our children, our grandchildren, our nieces and nephews. So that's how this money would support those roles.
Then my next question comes, are there proposals to use sales tax revenue for long-term investments in public education, such as increasing teachers' pay or funding mental health services in school?
That is exactly what these taxes are going to be utilized for, to increase teachers' pay. Like John Carlos said, you believe it or not, classroom teachers are working 2 and 3 additional jobs in order to make ends meet. So the commitment from the commissioners is that these dollars will be used to increase their pay so that we can, have them focus on what's most important, our children. Yes, ma'am.
That sales tax is just for Guilford County schools, not city workers.
That is correct.
Yeah, the commitment from the commissioners is to provide the support for frontline workers and teachers in the Guilford County schools. Any other questions?
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
How fast will that money come in, and how soon will you be able to implement it?
That's a great question. Great question. So, of course, if this passes, and let me say, if this passes, exactly, that's what I was going to say, but if this passes on November 5th, that would be when it would begin. However, of course, it would take time for some of the money to accrue at that start date. However, once it does begin, then it would be paid retroactively from when the sales tax referendum passed. Okay, so folks would not miss anything. They would still be paid retroactively as to when the vote passed on November 5th.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that include free lunches for the children? What else is it?
So right now in Guilford County schools, we have 110 CEP or Community Eligibility Program schools. What that means, out of 120 schools, we have 110. What that means is that every single student in those schools can eat breakfast and lunch at no cost to them or their parents. And so we encourage all of our Guilford County constituents, when your children go to school, have them to go through that lunch line and get their meal, because it does not cost you or them a dime to do that. The return on that is our additional funds that can go into help support our frontline workers. And so we want to make sure that everybody has a general knowledge on how these systems work in our schools, particularly with regard to those students in schools who are able to eat at no cost every single day.
So could you share more in terms of the impact of not voting in favor of the sales tax? The impact that it could make, and then also in terms of maybe the consequences that may be associated with that if the election goes in another direction that will give leverage to Project 2025.
So I understand exactly where your question is coming from. The impact, and I'll speak specifically to the impact of just not voting, period. As many of you who are under the sound of my voice know, that there have been many people who have paid a lot for everyone to be able to vote, regardless of their background, their skin color, who they are as a person. And it's important that we exercise that right to vote. Now, Pastor Hughes, you spoke about the implications from not passing this sales tax referendum and what it means for Guilford County schools. While Dr. Morrison and I, we cannot tell you how to vote, the implications for the sales tax not passing is that we continue to have teachers and frontline workers who are working 2 and 3 jobs to try to make ends meet, and then come to school tired, but still dedicated to the job of trying to teach our children. That's the implication. The other side of that also is that those same teachers and frontline workers can leave Guilford County, go one exit past the farmer's market, and make more money in another school district. We want to continue to keep our people in the Guilford County Schools house because we have some outstanding educators and frontline workers in this district. And we want to do right by them, but we need your help to do it. Yes, sir.
I know I heard you say the 5 cents and $20.
Yes, sir.
Okay, with that being said, why is the education, the lottery?
You want to speak to that?
You got it.
Okay.
You know, he knows the lottery real well.
So, because I did some research in anticipation of that very question, and I will tell you what I've learned about that, or what I know about it. The state provides some assistance for schools, capital needs, which is like building the infrastructure, et cetera, in schools, through its Public Building Capital Fund, via the proceeds from the North Carolina Education Lottery. Each year, legislators annually direct funding from the lottery to provide state public schools funds. In addition, Guilford County receives between $4 and $6 million from the lottery fund, which is allocated to pay back debt services expenses for prior school bonds. Lottery funding is limited and not consistent year by year. The funding alone does not provide enough revenue to cover all the school capital needs or the school bond debt. So we're constantly working to try to overcome the debt and interest accrued from those debts for school bonds that have been passed before. That's what the lottery, Guilford County.
Guilford County.
Guilford County. Correct, and that's, yes, just for Guilford County, between 4 and 6 million, but that money is used to pay debts. It's not, that money from the lottery, it's not used to increase teacher salaries or frontline salaries.
Hence the reason why the commissioners felt it was important to now, let's put a referendum out there just focused on the frontline workers and the teachers.
So I noticed that you guys have a shortage of bus drivers. You're hoping that this money will entice people
There
to
you-
apply and that you can offer better pay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great question. Yes, there is a shortage of bus drivers, and unfortunately, that is not an exclusive issue to Guilford County schools. It's all over this country. But we are concerned about our students here in Guilford County schools, and we're always looking for great bus drivers, great teachers, great school nutrition workers, great custodians, great maintenance workers to come to our district and earn a livable wage to support themselves and their families.
And if the sales tax referendum is passed, then that gives us a leg in or a leg up on trying to compete.
Absolutely.
Because it is about competition, without question. You know, there is one of the most difficult jobs we have in the human resources arena is trying to find quality people. Now, we can find people, but you want quality people to take care of our children. Whether it's a classroom teacher, whether it's a plumber, a carpenter, or a bus driver, or a custodian, whoever. We want the best for our children. Yes, ma'am.
So I have a question. So, on the ballot, it says, about the sales tax. So what we're hearing tonight is gonna help increase salaries for teachers, possibly,
And frontline workers.
and frontline workers. So I know like with grants, when you get a grant, whatever you say in that grant, the money is allocated to that.
Yes, ma'am.
So on that referendum, it doesn't say anything about what we're hearing tonight. So how can we make sure that the money is allocated to the frontline workers and to the teachers? Because it doesn't say that.
You are correct, ma'am. It does not say that on the ballot. It says for or against, and it's a referendum. However, the commissioners who put that on the ballot have made a commitment that it is going to be utilized for teachers and frontline workers. And we're going to hold them accountable, right?
And we have that resolution in writing from them.
In writing. Absolutely. We have the resolution.
We have
Yeah,
that
they
resolution
gave it to us in writing.
from them. Absolutely, yeah.
So there's a definite commitment. Other questions?
Well, we thank you all so much for your time, and certainly if there are any other questions that are generated from online, then Pastor Hughes, if you will just get those to us, and we'll be sure to provide responses for that. But thank you, everyone, for your time and your